I just want to start with 4 simple words.
Right.
It is not, I want to dance, it's welcome to CLOSR Music.
I love it. Very good. Very good. Thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
So, you've been quite open about your struggles with like anxiety and stuff like that. I did a bit of research into into you and stuff, and you are a Calm ambassador.
Yes.
Which is amazing. I just wondered if you would be open enough to kind of talk about your experiences kind of with anxiety, what it's like in the music industry.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, for myself, like, where to begin? I mean, I've had sort of issues with mental health for most of my life. I got sent away by my parents when I was 7 years old, and I didn't like it very much, and to school. And it's, you know, Philip Larkin said they fuck you up, your mum and dad. But yeah, so I've had my issue over the years. For a long period of time, that manifested itself through substance abuse. I had quite a big problem with that for a time as well.
Yeah.
And eventually managed to knock that on the head. For the, you know, it's always an ongoing thing, but like for the time being, I've been off the drugs that were doing bad things to me since 2016, I think it was.
Nice.
And but what was interesting for me, at any rate, I don't know for anybody else, but once that had kind of been put to bed, it turns out I still had issues, and it turns out, to everybody's surprise, that kind of drugs were a symptom, not a cause, should we say, or at least that's one we're looking at. So I'm fortunate that my wife is in the therapy world, and she sort of encouraged me to engage with all of that. And I had this real kind of breakthrough moment a few years ago when I was telling my therapist about kind of some of the stuff I deal with, and she's just like, well, that's an anxiety attack. And I was like, what? Because obviously it's a word I've heard other people use over the years, and I've just never thought to point it in my own direction. And it was really often giving something a name is it's not the end of the story by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a useful, it's an important step on the journey, do you know what I mean? So, I mean, these days, I have coping strategies and that kind of thing, but at the same time I also have good days and bad days. But you mentioned the music industry. I mean, the music industry is a funny one because it's my passion, it's my love, it's the place I feel at home and I adore it. It's a reasonably high stress way of existing, being on tour.
Yeah.
From some angles, I mean, I sort of go back and forth on this a little bit. I've been touring since I was 16 years old, and it's definitely, tour life is normal to me. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes people go, oh, you live in a bubble, you do this weird thing, whatever, and it's like, it's not a bubble to me, it's not weird to me, it's what I do.
Yeah, it's your life.
It's my life, and I'm much more comfortable sitting on a tour bus than in a bed. And but it can be a high stress environment, it can be quite alienating sometimes. I'm kind of through that part, to be honest, simply because I've done it for so long, and most of my crew who I tour with I've been friends with for 20 years at least, and they're way closer to me than my family or whatever. So but yeah, there are difficult moments, and there's ultimately, I exist in an environment where you show up in a room and there's just booze, and if you drink it all, they'll bring you more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that can be quite triggering, I suppose would be the word. But again, you know, I've got lots of experience of coping strategies and that kind of thing. So
yeah, no, that's so positive. And in terms of like when you're performing, obviously you are an artist. You obviously write down about the experiences that you've had.
Sure.
Is it triggering, or is it hard to sing about them on a daily basis, or is it a relief, or
no,
is it a coping strategy?
Occasionally is the answer to the question. I think that there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, if you sing a song about, I've got a song called Haven't Been Doing So Well that's specifically about anxiety attacks, and it's like, if you sing something like that and then a bunch of people sing it back as well, that feels very positive. It's like there's a sense of recognition and empathy and understanding and that kind of thing, and the sense, I never want to be the kind of person who describes what I do as like useful to other people. That's what other people would say, but to the extent that anybody's taking any use out of my writing, it's a very life-affirming thing. Also, it's got to be said, in all honesty, that like when you're playing a show, you don't relive every single lyric that you write every single time you sing it, because quite a lot of the time I'm trying to think about not falling over, what song's coming next.
What's that person wearing in the front row?
Do you know what I mean? Is my guitar in tune? Whatever. So there is a degree that, you know, performance involves a degree of detachment. Having said that, there are definitely days. Do you know what I mean? I wrote a song called "Wave Across the Bay" about my friend Scott Hudson, who took his own life in 2018, and we had, that song was in the main set for 2 years or whatever. And it was interesting to me because I would say like one show out of every 6 maybe, I'd get to that point in the set and actually feel really, which is weird and just kind of like, and sometimes you can take that feeling and channel it into a better performance, which is great, and sometimes you can't. And so there can be dicey moments with it for sure. And there's a part of me that thinks that I should just write songs about like partying in cars and
flowers
and wherever else and have an easy time with it. But also then I wouldn't care about what I was doing. So
true.
swings around this.
No, it's great, and I think it's really positive that you use your platform to talk, very openly about kind of what you've gone through. So thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
On a bit of a different note, like, what's your favourite lyric you've ever written, or like one of your favourite ever lyrics? This is about mental health, we'll get back into that.
I mean, that's a good question. I'm going to be boring and pick stuff from the new record that I've just done because it's obviously it's very new and powerful. I'm very proud of it.
I'm very good by that.
Thank you very much. It's kind of you to say. The song somewhere in between is on my mind because I spent the last 2 days filming a music video for it. But that's one of my favourite songs I ever wrote. That said, one of my favourite lyrics I ever wrote was the lyrics to a song called "Broken Piano," which is on Tape Deck Heart. And I don't think that lyrics and poetry are the same thing at all. I think that they look similar, but they're actually quite different creative things, and there are moments when lyrics become poetry, but they're not necessarily poetry kind of thing. But I remember finishing the words for that and thinking to myself, that's good. Yeah, that'll do. Do you know what I mean? Like, particularly because it's a song that's full of allusions to other folk songs and poems and this kind of thing, and it just finishes with the line, "A sinner amongst saved men on the banks of the muddy Thames." And if you're going to put a gun to my head, I'm picking that one. There we go.
There isn't a gun, by the way. But
okay, that's a relief. It would be quite intense if there was a gun in it. Indeed.
Yeah, the interview might be done there.
Yeah.
So sticking with the theme of Undefeated, your latest album.
Yes.
Obviously, it was released under an independent record label.
Yeah.
What was that like? How kind of did that differentiate?
It felt good. It felt comfortable to me. I mean, I did my first 4 records I did with an independent label, and then I did 5 records that were on an independent label that then licensed onto a major. So it was kind of a hybrid situation. And now I'm back in the purely indie world, and it feels good. I mean, I don't really have any regrets about the time I spent working with Universal, but at the same time, I finished my deal, which is very rare. Apparently 5% of bands who sign a major deal actually complete the number of records that you sign for.
Yeah.
And they offered to continue working with me and to do a new deal, and I said no, and they were shocked, and I felt strong at that point. I was like,
you felt big.
Yeah, but I don't wish anybody ill. It just feels like the right place to be. It feels more comfortable for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. So coming up for 3,000 shows, which is great. We're looking forward to Alexandra Palace show. Class achievement. It obviously gives me great pleasure to be able to play some music. And obviously from 3,000 shows, you are our 3rd interview. Can you remember anything from show 3?
Yeah.
Can you actually?
I think I'm right in saying I'm not 100% sure about this.
Some dial's gonna come.
Hold on. It's on the list. Do you mind if I have a look at the list?
Yeah, honestly,
because I think it was in Southend or it was in Clapham. I can't quite remember. But I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to look it up. This is live research. I was in Clapham. Brennan Roses in Clapham. Yeah, that was at the point I was still in Million Dead at the time, and the solo show thing was just a kind of like side thing. And I remember that that show was like seated. It was like almost like a theatre kind of affair.
Yeah.
And the vibe was very kind of dry and sort of grown up somehow. And I was trying to write kind of drunk folk songs to borrow Beans on Toast's phrase. And it just felt a bit odd. And I'd only done it twice before, and I wasn't really settled into what I was doing. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was the best show I ever played out of 3,000. But
it was there.
It was there. It was a good time. It may or may not have been a benefit show. I can't quite remember. Anyway, yeah.
Well, that's amazing. So obviously you've got so many songs now. You've got so many great albums. How difficult is it to like pick a set?
Oh, it's well. I spend a depressingly large amount of my day thinking about set lists. Like more, it's funny. People kind of go, "Oh, have you thought about playing that song?" It's like, yeah, I have. Do you know what I mean? It's like I think about it all the time, and it's funny. I'm going to try and not now spend the next half hour ranting about set list structuring, but it's like there's a lot that goes into it because you've got to there's a narrative arc to a good set. You start somewhere, you take it with you. There's a mix between following and leading, and what I mean by that is the following part is playing the sing-alongs that people want to hear, which is great, you know. But the leading part is where you play stuff that people might be less familiar with, whether that's a new song or a B-side or whatever it might be. You know, you can just play the hits, as it were, which sometimes is really fun. And I'm probably going to lean in that direction today because it's a festival show.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, as much as he's one of my all-time favourite songwriters, Tom Petty famously basically just played the track listing of his greatest hits CD for about 10 years. Yeah. And it was the same show every day. And at a certain point, I'd imagine it was boring for him, and it was certainly boring for the audience. And I like the idea of being an artist where it's like every time you come and see me play, there's at least one thing that you're kind of like, oh, wow, I didn't expect to play that kind of thing. And boy, have I got enough songs to have scope to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Can you kind of feel that as an artist? Obviously, you've got the songs when you pick a set, and you've got the ones everyone sings along to.
Yeah.
Because obviously every artist is going to have songs that the crowd connect with, maybe more, no more. But then when you play one that people might not expect or might not, can you feel that on stage?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing I have you never quite know, but I have a pretty good sense of what songs are going to land where. Yeah. And it's slightly different in different countries because of how different records are done and that kind of thing. But it's interesting because like someone's like, "I'll play that song, it'll be great," and it was like,
it was dead.
It's like you'll go mental and everybody else is going to go, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is. I have a bit of a kind of applause-ometer, if you know what I mean. It's like, I don't know. But then there's also like, it's funny, Jimmy Buffett used to refer to certain songs as play them or get killed songs. And like, the thing is, I'm lucky enough to have more than one of them. There are some bands that have one song that they have to play. And ultimately, I don't, but the thing is, there's no disrespect to me saying it, because there's a lot of bands that don't have any songs in it.
That is true.
So be grateful for it. But like, I'm lucky that there's probably 5 songs I play every show that I do, because otherwise people will be sad. And it's kind of nice that there's 5 rather than.
That is very true. That is very true. Yeah. So to my records, which might be wrong, they might be wrong. You've never released a studio version to the Ballad of Me and My Friends.
You know what we did? We did sort of, but way later. There is a sort of kind of reworking piano version of it that's on Songbook, I think it's on. Okay. It's alright.
What is the reason for like because obviously on Spotify, like I've looked at both versions. I'm pretty sure you released one version in 2013 and one in 2006, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
That might be wrong.
Yeah.
But they both seem very similar, and it's obviously a live version.
Yeah. So
what's the reasons for that?
There is the 2013 version.
It's got the yellow cover.
Yeah, that's 10 for 10. So there's a story here, and basically I wrote that song while I was on tour in France in 2006, at a point in time when no one cared about what I did, apart from my gang at this pub that we used to squat that was in Holloway called Nambuka. And I used to stay there in between tours. And I wrote the song and I just had this idea that it would be really cool. Basically, the thing with that pub, it was borderline derelict, but it was just full of musicians, and they put on shows, and people like Dan Bastille and the Vaccine, Justin from the Vaccine's playing solo, and Mumford & Sons and Laura Marling, and all those sort of people were around playing shows. But essentially everyone was just kind of waiting until 11 when they'd lock the doors, and then we'd have a lock-in and we'd go till like 5 in the morning. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to have this song where the only recording of it was a lock-in at 5 in the morning with all of my friends singing the chorus? And we did, and that's the yellow covered one. But the problem with that is that by the time I got 5 in the morning, I was completely fucking off my tits, basically. And I played it way too fast. So a friend of mine, Jay, Beans on Toast, recorded that.
Right.
And because it was his pub. And I was like, amazing, we got it, we're going to put that on the album, it's going to be great. And then I listened back to it and was like, oh wow, can you tell that I was on amphetamines at this point in my life? And it's just like, it's just way too fast. So we did it again about a month later at a gig at the Barfly, and that's the version that's on Six the Week. That's the kind of quote unquote official version.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But I don't know, I can't really tell you why, but it was just always going to be a live version in my head. Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, Tom Waits did a record called Closing Time that he recorded recorded the whole thing live in front of an audience, and it was in a studio, but there's no non-audience version of that record, and I just think that's kind of cool.
No, it's great. So like with these interviews, like I always kind of want to get the guests to kind of play a game. Can I give you a game of rock, paper, scissors?
You'll win.
And if I win, can I come and interview you before the Alexander Palace show?
Probably yes. I mean, it's not 100% up to me, but I'll say yes. Fuck it, we'll say yes.
Okay.
It's good.
Okay.
Right. So after
and
3.
hopefully by the Alexander Palace show, I'll have a proper camera.
Okay.
Hopefully.
This works. I've shot entire music videos on iPhones. They do the job. Right. So we need after 3.
Rock, paper, scissors, go.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not going to choose paper. Oh no, I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors, go. Rock, paper, scissors, go. Best of three.
Now I get to interview you before I.
Okay.
There we go. I'll come up with questions for you.
That's class. So like, obviously you've been writing songs for ages.
Yes.
What's your songwriting process like? Is it music first? Is it lyrics first? Is it a bit of poetry? You know, what's that kind of like?
I would say that I come at it in a different way. Really, I would say that there's the fishing bit and then there's the workshop bit. Some people say the kind of inspiration, perspiration thing or whatever, but like there's a thing that's kind of constantly going on all the time in my head, which is I think of as fishing, which is just keeping an ear out for a phrase or a melody that appeals to me. Do you know what I mean? And like it's kind of like it's a fishing rod in the water. It's a little radar that's just pinging about, and I have tons of notes on my phone. And so when it comes to words, sometimes it's literally just a word that I like. I really like the word foundling, and I put it in the song somewhere in between after having had it in my notes for like 10 years. It was just like, there it is. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. But then sometimes it'll be 4 lines of a song, and sometimes it'll be 8 lines of a song. Sometimes it's a whole song's worth of lyrics. Similarly, sometimes it's literally just a turnaround from one chord to another that I quite like. Sometimes it's a top line melody. Sometimes it's a whole verse and chorus, whatever it might be. But so you end up with this kind of junkyard of stuff, and then I spend time. And again, then I spend time kind of smushing them together, sort of thing. And sometimes it's clearer than that. Sometimes you sit down and the song just comes and you just write the song down. There's a song called "If Ever I Stray," which I wrote in 20 minutes during a sound check in St. Petersburg, Florida, in 2010. Do you know what I mean? And it just kind of arrived, and it was like just right now. But then sometimes a song will take years to get right. The title song of the album, "Undefeated," the piano part of that, which I wrote, which is ambitious to me, I don't really play piano. But I had these chords that I really liked, and that's been around with different sets of words for years, and it was never quite right. And then the words, there's been bits of the words of that for a long time, but I read a book called Autumn in the Wilderness by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and that kind of helped that song come together. So, you know, that song's the work of like nearly a decade, really. Yeah. Whereas, as I say, there are others that just go bonk, and they just go right. So, in some ways, I don't really have a standard process. I mean, and then once you finish writing the song, then I take it to my band, we work on the arrangements, and sometimes the song changes at that point, and then you record it and mix it. And there are times when you change lyrics at the last minute. You know what I mean? You'd be in the studio and just like, wait a second, you know. Yeah. So even I would say that there are songs that keep growing after they've been released. You know, there are songs that I'll do different arrangements of live, or you know, maybe change the lyric to, or whatever. So I like the idea that songs are organic things, you know what I mean? I don't want them to be captured in aspect forever the second that you finish them, do you know what I mean? They keep going.
No, that's great. And obviously you've released a lot of albums and stuff, and obviously things have changed, you've grown up, you've experienced different things in your life. What does like success mean to you now? So obviously with like Undefeated, is it a number of streams, is it chart positions, or and how has that changed from when you were maybe younger, releasing different albums?
I would say actually my measure of success is more philosophical than that, and sort of has remained constant. And I mean, I don't mean this to sound sarcastic, but like I don't have to have another job. Do you know what I mean? I make my living playing music. Yeah. And that's awesome, because I did the bit which most people in bands do, where you kind of like work a telesales job in between tours or whatever, and it's fucking horrible. Yeah. And indeed, you know, I don't want to sound blasé in saying this, but like, you know, there was nothing else that captured my imagination the same way. You know, I spend a lot of, I mean, in some levels I still do think about what else I would do if this stopped working, and you know, I'm sure I would get by, but like none of it fires my soul. And I'm aware that it's a very privileged thing in life to be able to do something for a living that does fire your soul, and I'm very aware that not everybody gets to do that. So, and which incidentally is quite a motivating factor for me, because it's like I just feel so insanely lucky to be doing this. It's like, cool, get on with it, do more stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, so that's one measure of success. I mean, the other one, there is a creative measure of success. It's not quite all that functional, and like I like to get to the end of making a record and just feel like I did everything that I could at that moment in time to make it, to put my best foot forward. And you know, I don't hold every record I've made in the same regard. Do you know what I mean? I like some more than others. I'm not getting into which one. But you know, I finished Undefeated, and I really knew that there was nothing more I could do to make it better. At that moment in time, and you know, I try and be my own harshest critic. I try and think about what I could do better next time. I try and make sure that I have something to say, and I'm not just churning out records because that's what I do, or whatever. And I'd say the same thing about tours as well. You know, I like to get to the end of a show and feel completely fucked because I gave it everything I had. And I like to get to the end of a tour and feel like I did my best. You know what I mean? So, and I generally do. I mean, the US tour that we just got back from a couple of weeks ago was genuinely, I don't say this very often, was probably my favourite tour I've ever done in my life. Like, it was just, we played really well, the vibe was great. It was, do you know what I mean? It was just, I felt really, really good about it. So, somewhere in there.
No, that's great. I think it's really cool to hear that, like, obviously, as the world's changing with social media and streaming and stuff, like, I think, obviously, there's a lot of toxic stuff in terms of like counting the stream numbers. And I think that's really great to hear that you kind of don't do that.
No, I don't. And I mean, obviously, I get kind of emails with kind of stats from the label here and there, and it's just like, who fucking cares, man?
Delete.
Like, well, I mean, you know, it's not. I'm not trying to be an ingenue. Like, I do think about the business side of what I do, and we do sort of strategize and all that sort of crap.
Of course,
But like, ultimately, I'm quite old-fashioned, and it's like all I ever really wanted to do was have the opportunity to try and entertain a crowd on a stage. That's not to disavow songwriting or indeed recording, but it's like, that's what I'm going to do, and I don't know what time it's, but in a few hours' time. And I feel really lucky to be able to do that, and if we get a good vibe in this field today, then I'm very content.
No, it's great to hear. It's honestly great to hear.
It's funny, I don't want to sound like an old man with a walking stick, but it's like there are younger bands I encounter these days who like they'll take a social media person on tour before they'll take a sound guy, and I'm just like, you out of your fucking mind? And apparently not. They know what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? They're smart. That's how the music industry, economy, however you want to put it, is kind of going these days. But I mean, I think you end up then with a phenomenon of bands that look fantastic on Instagram and can't fucking play.
That is true.
And again, call me an old-fashioned stick in the mud, but it's just not really of interest to me.
True. But yeah, if you do need a social guitar, I mean, I'm just saying it.
Yeah, well done.
So obviously you're a Guinness World Record Holder. Congratulations on the number of shows that you played in 24 hours.
It was horrible.
Which is great.
It was fucking horrible.
Yeah, like where did the idea come from?
Oh, masochism, I suppose. I mean, actually, in some ways it was born of the fact I did 24 shows in 24 hours in 2009 for a music video for The Road, but they were mostly house parties, and we were all completely insanely out of our minds, wasted, and we didn't really document it, like, in terms of keeping notes of the shows and distance and everything. But people have asked me over the years if I would do that again, and I was like, no. And then I sort of did. So I'm the fool. But I mean, I'll chalk that up to glad I did it. More glad that I don't have to do it again. Let's say that, because it was it got pretty brutal. And the thing is, when we did because the first thing, the 24 shows, was for the music video for a song called The Road. When we did that, I was 27, and now I'm 42. And let me tell you, it's not the same. Yeah, it's not the same.
That's good. Do you have like the plaque on your like mantelpiece, or?
No, not as yet. Not as yet. But I mean, it was fun to do. The other thing about that whole thing with the recent one, which I'm proud of, is that from some angles it was also a kind of a ruse to get my marketing budget spent on independent venues, because every show is independent. And I didn't get paid for the shows because they were all done through record sales, through independent record stores as ticketing. So I had to hire every venue and set every show up and all the rest. And we paid for that out of my own budget, and it's like, cool, my own budget went to helping indie venues. And as you may know, that's something that's close to my heart.
Yeah, that's brilliant. One of the key things I remember from your previous album was like when Banquet Records turned into, was it?
Frank Records, yeah, good for them. John Tolley, who runs Banquet, is one of the good guys. If there is a heaven, he's going there.
No, that's a great, we love Banquet Records. So yeah, just a couple more.
Sure, yeah.
Because I don't want to take all your time. So, do you have any bands / artists to keep an eye out for in the future?
Yeah, loads. I mean, how long have you got?
1 hour 45?
Okay, right. I will say, I mean, I start off with bands that I've produced recently. So, like, the Meths got a new record coming out soon that I did that I think is brilliant. Ben Brown is the singer in a band called Dingus Khan, and Dingus Khan are amazing, but his solo stuff is also amazing. And the first single is called Blue, so if you search Ben Brown Blue, you'll find it.
Yeah.
I think he's just a world-class genius. And I did the most recent Grace Petrie record as well, which I'm really proud of. Outside of stuff I produce, I think it's a really exciting time for punk rock right now. I think there's loads of really good new punk bands coming through. There's like Mannequin Pussy, OBGMs, bands like that. But in particular, there's a band from Canada called Nobro, who are my current favourite band in the universe. They're so good, it sort of makes my head hurt how fucking good they are.
Yeah.
So if their debut album is called Set Your Pussy Free, and they are a raging feminist punk band, and I think they're brilliant.
That's cool, we will definitely keep an eye out for that. And my final question, what's next for Frank Turner? Obviously, you've just released an album, obviously, called the Alexander Palace show.
Yeah.
What's next beyond that?
So one of the things about the new label setup that I've got is it's more internationally focused, which I'm really pleased with. So up to and including adding Ballad, we're kind of doing the first lap, as it were. So we're doing, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, UK, and Europe, which are the places that I always play. Next year, we're hopefully getting to South America, Southeast Asia, Central America, a bit further into Eastern Europe, like places that I have not yet spent that much time. Japan, I've never been to Japan, I'm dying to go, and there are plans afoot, and I'm so excited. So, do you know what I mean? But I mean, broadly speaking, I plan on touring this record to death, and then I guess we'll see. I mean, on some levels, I haven't written many songs since I finished Undefeated, which is unusual for me. But I'm not uncomfortable about that because I feel like A, I really like Undefeated, and B, it's my 10th album. And I think that if I was ever going to sort of take a minute to just chill the fuck out for a second, it could be after 10 records. You know what I mean? But the only thing I would say is I have said that exact sentence about a different record in the past. So yeah, well, we'll see what happens, but it could go either way. But the main thing is I'm going to be on